Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
So I asked this question, and this would apply to many things in our lives, but I'm asked this question of you. What's holding you back from those things that you feel you deserve? Feel like you truly inside, you deserve something, but you're afraid to ask for it. Maybe it's a raise at work. Maybe it's speaking up with somebody you're close to. Maybe it's a situation. What's holding you back? We're going to talk about that today. I think you'll be a little surprised as to what's actually holding you, me, all of us back. She is an amazing psychotherapist, works with just about everybody from teens to adults, couples, everybody navigating, little ones as well. Love talking with her. Susie Engel is back on the program. How are you doing today?
Hi, Steve. I'm fine. How are you?
Very well. And this topic is one that long time coming, because if you take a moment and think about anything that hasn't transpired, it's been on your mind. You've been thinking about it. It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you were thinking about changing jobs, maybe a side hustle. You got an idea, that asking for that raise, asking for a day off, whatever it might be. Why haven't you done it? What's holding you back? If you're feeling it, like this is, I deserve this, I should be getting this, I should be asking for this, then you should be, but you're not. What do you think the overall blanket answer is, Susie, of what might be holding us back?
Well, I'm probably old, like I don't mean old like age-wise, but messages that we internalized way early in our lives, whether they were intended that way. Sometimes we are just exposed to people in our lives or experiences in our lives, and it's no one's intention to inject us with an insecurity or self-doubt or whatever, however we would describe this, right? But usually it stems from very early experiences that become aware to us in the process of therapy or the process of just self-development during our life process. And it's I'm trying to find the words. So it's the unconscious structures of our brain, but it's also when you were describing the introduction, you brought your hands to your body, and that's a really good awareness. If you think about maybe a teen who has her or his first job and wants to ask her boss for a day off from the summer job. So the summer is short and they're feeling like, uh-oh, this is going to be intimidating. But usually the teen can say, I can feel it. I can feel it in my body. I feel so nervous and I feel stress. And they can describe whether it's tension in their muscles or in their core, or some people just feel it in their stomach or gut. So I love that awareness in the body of when people, any age, a child, teenager, or adult, might feel this. But the issue is to be aware that I feel held back. And I usually like motion like this as if somebody is pinning,
like wrestling, pinning you to the mat. Like,
yes,
I just want to get up and
or
get you.
up against the wall or what
Yeah.
have you. And that feeling of, or that inner or unconscious thought of being held back is a real problem because it's not exactly timely. I understand if it started in early experiences, but if you think about as we actualize throughout life, there's a certain feel of confidence when we're not held back. So it's good to become aware of it and to say, wait a minute, it just doesn't fit. I'm a good worker, or I deserve a raise, or and it's all about deserving too. So there's a lot going on in the unconscious. What do I deserve? Am I undeserving? That's all self-worth. And we have to be able to talk about these things and not talk ourselves out of it.
Yes. And
I
when
don't know. I don't know if that made any sense.
no, it totally does. And that's why when we started, I wanted to establish that you've established, we have within us, that this isn't just a, yeah, I'm not really sure, but maybe I want to, no. You already know that you deserve a raise. You feel it. That's it. It's deep within, but you're not taking the next step. And this could be
And
anything. It could be
yeah,
like the day off for the, summer job with the teen. Like they're just, their friends are out having a great time. They're working hard all summer, but it's a, short time. And then they just want a day off, but I'm afraid to go to the boss. And yeah, I mean, but you've already made that decision. It's like you have the gun, you put the bullet in, you already want to fire the shot, but you're not doing it. You're not just you're afraid to move forward with whatever your desires are. Does it go back to childhood, most of this?
I think it does personally. I think
Mm.
that in terms of if I empirically were to view the scope of my work and expertise, I think it goes back to childhood. And like I said before, it's mostly unintended unless somebody is really up against abuse and neglect. And
Yeah.
then that's pretty obvious where the genesis of that I'm not deserving
Yep.
might start, because even infants, they do all sorts of studies that if parents don't soothe their children properly or effectively or heartfelt with a heartfelt and soft eyes and a soft face, when children and infants miss out on that, they're already developing behind the eight ball. They're already developing what's wrong. Maybe I shouldn't ask for what I need, and maybe I should soothe my caregiver. And they have videos and research about this. There's great researchers like Stephen Porges about the polyvagal system and the polyvagal theory of attachment, and he's just one. I always mention Alan Shore and all sorts, where the child might shut down their needs, the infant might shut down their needs and say, wait a minute, this caregiver is gone. I better take care of the caregiver. And you can see the child starts caressing the caregiver and doesn't cry out for what it needs. So
Mm.
it's a very interesting phenomenon.
Wow.
So I do think it starts early, early. And it's all, for me, it goes back to attachment. Who were our caregivers? Were they good enough? But the bottom line is, we're talking about this time in our lives, whether we're 5 years old or 50 years old or 80 years old. Why am I unconsciously doubting? Why am I second guessing? Because you said, well, if I deserve a raise, why would I second guess that? And then that becomes deep inside of us like a fear, which is
Fear.
the emotion.
Let's focus on the fear, because and let's get the raise thing. You brought that up before. I think that's just amazing example. So you work hard, you do a good job. You could say it to yourself, yeah, I care. I really, I'm not just phoning it in. I haven't quit. I'm putting the effort in, but I'm afraid to ask for a raise. I'm uncomfortable asking for a day off. Why? So ultimately, fear comes into
Fear.
play. So, and
Yeah.
let's look at those.
Yeah.
Afraid to ask for a day off. What's going to happen? Then the what ifs start circulating,
Because
percolating in your mind. Well,
so
go ahead.
so unproductive. The what ifs. I'm sorry. I know it's very common, but it's just if you stopped and said all the what ifs, it's just a fabrication. In my opinion, it's a fabrication. Uh,
Absolutely.
and what is productive about that? And the fear might start in infancy or childhood or early, we have like big growth spurts, right? So infancy through toddlerhood is a real big growth spurt. I think hormonal changes like age maybe 10 to 17 are big hormonal changes, right? Big growth spurts in the body and mind. But if the foundation of those experiences are that something is off, then we feel fear. That's a natural emotion. It's not good or bad to feel fear, right? It's a healthy emotion. But if fear already attaches to a value system of I am bad or I am undeserving or um, you know, any insecurity, then fear needs to be relearned. We have to be able to say, look, fear is a natural emotion. There's nothing wrong with us feeling fear. The only problem is if it attaches to, in our left brain, some sort of negative self-worth or negative value system. And then we have to figure out how we're going to correct that. And therapy really helps. Like to me, that's getting to the root of the issue. If we get to the root of the issues, we really solve our problems. And then asking for a raise, it doesn't even matter what the outcome is. We feel confident and we're restoring what our blueprint in life should be. So
Mm,
I kind of fumble around today, but I don't know what's happening with my thought process, but I hope that
not
I
at all.
expressed that
Not at all. And
clearly.
what really comes into play for me with the what if, where's the evidence? And I'm not, beating anybody up here. Guilty as charged with all of this too. But if we go to the asking for a raise or a day off, the evidence should be there to support it. What's the what if? Did your boss ever say, you ask for another raise, you're out of here? Has that ever happened? No. If you want another day off, just you're going to ask for another day off. Well, you know what? I'm going to remember that. All right, you can have that day off, but the next time you ask, that's never been said. So, and I remember when I was younger, I was already working in a place for 10 years. Embarrassed to admit this. Had 4 weeks vacation. I wouldn't even take all my vacation when I was younger. Why? Because I wanted to provide value and they'd have to find somebody to fill in and blah, blah, blah. But now looking at it, like, duh. And even years ago, when I finally realized it, I earned that. It's like that was money that I threw away. But we don't look at it that way because the what ifs creep in.
Well, and that's just deep seated, and it usually comes from ourselves after it's already internalized from external influences when we're much younger. So once we start figuring out, wait a minute, I'm conjuring this, I can either exude a sense of security, a, a sense of self-worth, a confidence. I'm using that word a lot because I feel like when clients figure themselves out or to do this work, I've had to figure a lot of myself out, or I wouldn't be able to do this work with people. The part of the experience is understanding the, like I said, the root of it to be able to free myself from being held back. And our general blueprint, Alan Shore talks about this all the time. We are born with DNA that says thrive in life and know your value and show your value. Don't hold back. And so to ask for a raise is saying I deserve this and I am worth it. And also, what is our work ethic? I happen to have a great work ethic. So I don't have any question about stuff like that.
Well,
You know,
yes. Well, why? What's going like this whole the thrive thing? I believe we're here not to be miserable. We're here to thrive. The universe wants that for us. Things get in the way. We get in our own way, essentially, what's going on there with the fear thing. But I agree with you. The more and more, I look at this, study it, absorb it, live it. Goes back to your childhood. It just is. It has to, and it's not just the childhood. It starts in the childhood, but for myself, I see pieces of evidence as you get older, just to support the notion from the beginning when you were a kid, and that just fortifies the fear, I guess.
well, it's this. If we start out internalizing negativity for one reason or another. Not, and this isn't about blaming. This isn't about saying, oh, it's all my mother and father's fault. That is not the issue at all.
No.
Like I said, most experiences are unintended, but we start developing a perspective early on in life. And then if that perspective isn't processed, so here's the missing step. If my mother and father talk to me about experiences, even if it's a few days later, a few hours later, a few months later, a few weeks later, it just doesn't matter. But if my parents have the ability, the capacity to say, you know what, I was thinking about the other day. How was that for you? Because what I was noticing is, and whatever they're going to discuss, that's digesting the experience properly so that I'm not left to my devices and then have maybe a disagreement with a friend at school in third grade and say, see, that friend and I had a disagreement. That reinforces I am bad because my parents processed with me. For example, that's just one example. But if that doesn't happen, we may feel very validated in feeling alone in experiences, in feeling negative about ourselves, and then that undeserving insecurity, fear balloons or mushrooms, right? So
So
I don't know.
we've identified what's going on here. How do we change that? All right, I want to go in and ask for a raise. Like, what do we do?
Yeah. I mean, I think with certain modalities of therapy. So I am mostly EMDR trained and attachment and psychodynamically trained. So first we go back to the foundations, and then we also ask very positive questions like what is already inside of you that we can strengthen? What is already inside of you? What is outside of you symbolically, whether it's spiritual, whether it's faith, whether it's a character in a book that you love? What is symbolic to you outside of you that we can strengthen for you and you can use as a model? So we're going internally to say, you know what, I am a strong person, but I've lost that along the way. So these are
Mm.
the things I need to strengthen, and therapy strengthens. There are methods to strengthen these internal things that are faint in us at some points in our lives. So that's one thing. And then the other is to look at the foundation and say, oh, and I'm not an infant right now, and I'm not 8 years old right now. I am whatever age I am, right? Even if I'm working with a 9-year-old, they can say, I can understand this as my best 9-year-old self. And they do. The little kids really get it, right?
Wow.
It's quite exciting, you know.
Well, you
So.
look at, that the child, they haven't lived the life. You could be a 50-year-old adult and afraid to ask for a raise, afraid to ask for a day off. Um,
Yeah.
and you've worked your whole life, you've done a great job. I guess is it reasonable to look at the other way around, the what if, the fear, to say to yourself, I asked for a raise or a day off. They could say no, and that's your boss's choice. Whatever, times are tough. I'm sorry, maybe another time. All right, at least you asked. Are they going to turn around and say to you, "You asked for a day off. You're out of here"? I guess you look at it, if somebody's going to fire you because you asked for a day off, and you rarely ask for a day off, and you put in 1,000%, and you've been working your whole life, then maybe you shouldn't be working there. Like if you just look at it,
Yes.
I'm saying look at it
Yeah.
from another angle. Yeah, another angle.
Right, right. Well, I mean, also, I mean, that's just totally irrational. So if your boss is that type of person, you're in an environment that's unhealthy, probably toxic. So that still should not be a reason not to ask for a raise or not to ask for, I mean, when I think of like young people, teenagers with their first jobs, the only times they really ask for a day off is if they have to come to therapy once a week. But then they ask like, can you just adjust my schedule every week for these hours? Or if family, maybe they have family that they rarely see who are coming in during the summer and they ask for that time at the beginning when they're hired. But the clients who are young people, inexperienced, who feel intimidated, they have that foundation that's never been reprocessed of insecurity and judgment upon themselves. And then if you're 55 years old and you lived with decades of holding yourself back, because there's no rationale that other people or situations are holding you back, that's something that you have to go back to your foundation and say, what was within me that I need to revive
Yeah.
and revitalize? And do we have the capacity to look back and say these experiences really, um, took a toll on me? But 5 decades, that's plenty of time now. I've not been aware. Now I am aware.
And if this won't be the first time you were afraid to ask for a raise, it's not. I don't think it's something that just presents. It's been, you've pulled it with you your entire adult life, but with therapy, talking about it, certainly going, a little personal discovery. The answers are there. I mean, I already. I don't want to say I figured myself out, but I kind of figured out why. I don't do this, I don't do that. The what
It
ifs.
generalizes. Yeah, and it generalizes. It isn't just asking for a raise. It just generalizes about, you know, can I dress in a style that I want to dress in and be comfortable?
Yeah.
Can I go uh, travel? We've talked about this a little bit. Can
Sure.
I travel? Can I have this new experience? Can I try to surf and just enjoy myself? Or am I going to feel, my first tennis match on a USTA tennis team, I remember, I'll never forget it. My partner said, now we have the walk of shame. And I said, I am not ashamed of anything. What do you mean? And she was just like, well, we lost whatever it was, six to what, it didn't matter. But she was coming out of the match panicked and ashamed. And I wasn't even thinking like that. I thought, like, wow,
Mhm.
this was really exciting. We had our first USTA match.
Totally. And I played tennis like 2 times over the summer. And there was a point where I'd be like, all right, well, let me get to the court where, we'll go early. So I'll play with my daughter. Nobody will be around. They won't see us. Now I'm like, I don't really care. I hit the ball. If it goes that way, that I laugh at it. But
Yeah,
it took me time to figure that out and get past that
yeah. But that's how this all generalizes into funky ways,
Yeah.
and it affects people and they're not loving life or enjoying. It's about lost joy or re refound or renewed joy. That's a good way for us to
100%.
encapsulate.
And
Yeah,
you're not being authentic. You're not being you because you deserve that raise and or day off. You do. So now it's almost against your grain, and how uncomfortable that is. You're not being you. It's almost like, putting on a mask when you go somewhere. You're not being yourself.
Oh
So
my gosh, it's so stressful.
yes, and it's going to
And
eat you up
that's
inside.
fear.
And that's
And
fear.
that's fear.
All right, we're gonna pin on that and circle back. Best way to find you. What's your website, Susie?
It's my name. I always have to stop and think. So it's Susan Engel hyphen LCSW.com.
Got it. And Engel is ENGEL, no dot in between, just Susan Engel LCSW.com.
Yes.
I think we did it.
Yeah, for sure.
Great talk today. So universal for all the things that are holding us back. And I appreciate you being here today, as always.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Susie. We'll catch up soon. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.